and welcome to our Board of Commissioner meeting for December 15, 2021. Actually, our last meeting of the year, and quite a year it has been. I know it started the year with our Township Secretary and myself being the only people in the boardroom as we were conducting meetings for a period of time. And it is very nice to have just about the full contingency. We have two of our fellow comrades are participating by Zoom, one around the corner and one almost halfway around the world. And we do appreciate that Commissioner Churchill and Commissioner Sinai can be with us. We have on the agenda this evening, there was a police committee that has been canceled. There's a library committee, a finance committee, and then our Board of Commissioners meeting. But before we get into this in earnest, there is something that we have to do this evening. It is the last meeting of one of our comrades, Commissioner Durbin. And I'm wondering, Commissioner Durbin, if you would be so kind as to join myself and Vice President Gavin in the Oval. Go this way. So Anna, the truth is that I asked if you would join Vice President Gavin and I in the Oval just because I wanted everybody to see his sport coat.
This is not festive for the holiday, this is festive for you and all the joy you're going to have not serving.
Right. So those of us who've been around for a while know that Anna's been a commissioner for 8 years, from Ward 8. And has been an absolute, pleasure to have on the board. I wish that I had the words and the capability of expressing the gratitude of all the service that you have done. And if we were to calculate the hours that you put in when we were once debating, dollars per hour, we would be fractions of a penny per hour. I know from all the work. And Anna, during her service, I know, has headed our library committee and gets one last hurrah in doing that this evening, and has been and during that and during the pandemic, the work that Anna did in all the coordination of what was happening as we were constantly changing, open, close, or open to degree, closed to degree, make sure that everybody knew all of the programs that were taking place, and coordinating that was just really a terrific job. And Anna's also served on our grants committee and making sure that we get all of those done properly. And I think the other committees, the ad hoc nominations committee, which you have chaired for a number of years, which in one degree may be one of the more difficult ones because you have all of these talented people that come forth to volunteer for the township. And somehow you then have to make a decision who to blend in and who not. And so in one degree, you can't make a mistake because the talent that's there, but the decision has to be made. And you've done that so well that I think now that you're not going to be on the board, maybe you'll do like fantasy football leagues for people. So it is, it's certainly a skill that you have possessed that we're going to miss. And then there's been the ad hoc traffic safety committee. All of the commissioners will say the number one problem they hear about is traffic. And Anna, along with others, have been on the committee as we have tried to tackle that issue and set up ordinances, be it for road bumps, and maybe there are about 6 in your driveway, and what else we have to do to try to go ahead and do that. And so, Anna, it would be difficult, and it would take all night, and we may be here all night anyway, in order for us to go through the things that you have done. But frequently, I've noted to everybody, we're elected by a ward to serve the township. And there is no doubt that your ward is very, very grateful for all that you have done. But you know what? So is the township. So Anna, I wish there were better words beyond thank you, but thank you so very much for what you've done. And we do have the traditional small token, budget season, small being the operative word. for you of a vase. And Anna, one other thing that I almost forgot, not just thanking you, but this gentleman here in the front row, your husband, Peter. We need to thank him for all that he's had to do during the time that you've spent here. And I know that you will then also be able to spend more time with your grandchildren. And as you and I have just decided, having that as a new experience, that we recognize that grandparents and grandchildren get along so well because they have a common enemy. So Anna, thank you so very much. Yeah, there it is. Right.
I'm going to hand it to my husband because otherwise I'll drop it.
Right.
I'll let him drop it. It's really lovely. Well, I hope I get to say a few words.
Indeed you do.
Yeah, I really would like to thank my constituents in Ward 8 for the honor of representing all of you for 8 years. It was a pleasure, really. People called on me for trying to help with a wide range of things, and somehow I was able to figure out the township website, especially after we fixed it, to point people in the right direction. And I also want to thank our incredibly dedicated township staff who are always so good to talk to and help me through things and help constituents through things. And that's every single department, and especially also Jody Kelly, that we would not survive without, because she knows everything. Anyway, I came to the board in 2014 really hoping to ensure residents were heard and to make life better for everybody in Lower Merion Township. And I was thinking about, kind of the things I was happiest about that I got to take part in. I did learn that problem solving and change can take a really long time, which is not always a happy thing. But some of the proudest accomplishments I remember are rewriting our solicitation ordinance so the police knew they didn't have to arrest young black people for offering to shovel sidewalks in the snowstorms. That sidewalk that we put into South Ardmore Park so people didn't have to walk in the street to get there with their kids. And improving the intersection at Wynwood and Argyle after lots of accidents. And it took incredible help from traffic safety and the engineers to go to PennDOT again and again to try and get what we needed. And now we're going to look forward to the road diet and some nice bicycle lanes on Wynwood Road, and a traffic signal at Ballytor and Wynwood, which everybody has been afraid of that intersection forever. So that's where I learned a lot about what it takes to do anything on traffic safety, especially when it's a state road. In our committee work, it was my pleasure to support our libraries, who have really done incredibly creative things during this pandemic. And I now cannot wait for my colleagues, under the leadership of Anthony Stevenson and Sean Kramer, my successor, to finally approve funds for the long-awaited improvement of the Ardmore Avenue Community Center and the Palm, so that they'll be upgraded to a condition that is worthy of this township's children and our senior citizens. And I hope my colleagues will follow up on all the sustainability things we've been talking about, improve on our parks and open spaces, improve walkability with additional sidewalks, allow the building of a boathouse at no cost to the township, for our high school rowers, and provide support to our local nonprofits who are helping our residents in need. I really hope that our community will pull together as it has done and remember to take care of each other. So thank you all for the privilege of being able to serve.
Anna, we're going to go back, and I think some of your colleagues may have a comment or two.
Well, I hope I can sit through them.
Yeah. So I know Commissioner Kramer, there was something that you wanted to say, and I'm sure there are others, and we all probably could spend the whole evening thanking Anna, but the floor is yours.
Thank you. Anna, I will miss you. I got to know you 9 years ago when your predecessor on the Board of Commissioners, Jane Delheim, told me that she had found a fabulous woman to succeed her and asked me to help you get elected. I managed your campaigns for commissioner, and in turn you mentored me when I was elected to the Board of Commissioners 2 years ago. Jane was right. You are brilliant, accomplished, deeply involved in the community, and care passionately about the people of the township, especially those who are less privileged than others. You and I share another bond, as we are both litigators who entered the practice of law in the 1970s. You graduated from Stanford University and Yale Law School at a time where there were relatively few women in the legal profession. You had to be a superwoman to be a true super lawyer, while also raising a family. And a quick look at the composition of this board, only 3 of whom are women, is a testament to the fact that it has not always been easy to be a successful woman in politics either. With your extraordinary talents, huge heart, and progressive values, you are remarkably successful in both. I am grateful to you for your 8 years of service and for recruiting another extraordinary woman, Shawn Kramer, to succeed you as Ward 8 Commissioner. I look forward to working with her. I hope you enjoy retirement and your time with your grandchildren. And I know our friendship will continue, even though I will really miss seeing you on Wednesday nights.
Do we have anybody else? I know we've all had an opportunity to talk with Anna. All right. Yeah, Commissioner Grimes, please.
So I just want to say something quickly, and it's really difficult to build on what you said, President Bernheim, and what Commissioner Kramer said, but it's funny, as I listening to what Gilda said, Jane, you and I also met, courtesy of former Commissioner Delheim, at an event at her house, which, oh, you remember this event when you were not yet elected. It's amazing to think how fresh-faced we were. If we weren't wearing masks, everyone could see that we're not as fresh-faced tonight, or at least I'm not. But I also, and let me say also how nice it is to see you in person tonight. Your contributions are always welcome over Zoom, but it's much better in person. Let me say also, I've appreciated over the years the times that we've talked about issues, and I found your counsel and your advice to be, and your positions to be very well taken, and I will miss that. So I thank you for your service. I thank Peter for his role in lending you on Wednesday nights and at many other nights also to service on the board. And I look forward to your continued input, however you feel comfortable in what we're doing going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Grimes. Yeah, Commissioner Stevenson, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that Commissioner Durbin, you have set a bar about speaking for those who don't have a voice. And you were uncompromising in 8 years of speaking on issues where there a lot of times were uncomfortable, but for a person in your stature and your background was willing to take a chance where others would have maybe been silent or cautious. We are deeply in gratitude for that, and I hope that your leadership from that continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McKeon.
Thank you. Anna, I've had the privilege of serving on the ad hoc nominations committee with you for the last 4 years, which you chair. Commissioner Whalen and I were just in interviews this week, and I think you really set the standard for how to run that committee, where you apply with fairness, you keep it organized, and you really, like, it's agenda-free. And I just appreciate the way that you made it a completely collaborative process, and we get way too many talented applicants, so it's very difficult. But I think you did an outstanding job on that, and I know we're all going to miss you, and I hope you can stay involved with the township.
It's all organized because of Jody.
That's true, too. Yeah.
You didn't have to give away the secret. Anyway, yes, Commissioner Whalen, please.
Just very briefly, Commissioner Durbin. Obviously, I fully applaud and support everything that everyone has said before now, but I would like to point out one thing which I think the public really does need to know is how your mentorship, both Commissioner Kramer mentioned it, and I want to really highlight that now, will continue on this board going forward, even though you're leaving. Commissioner Kramer's in the same boat as I am. We both came on about 2 months before the pandemic hit, and so I had barely gotten my feet under me, and Commissioner Durbin was really instrumental in helping me both post-election and pre-installment, and then in particular during the pandemic and certainly early days of that, trying to figure out my way around the township, how to be a commissioner, what being a good commissioner and even a great commissioner meant, and how to do that. And in particular, I would say we had a lot of discourse and press and a lot of help certainly from the library staff to get the libraries open as soon as possible and operating. And certainly applaud you both for the mentorship that you've shown me and getting the libraries up, which was a passion project of mine.
Thank you. Please, Commissioner Courtney.
I remember the first time we met at the coffee shop in Ardmore before I was on the board. You were very generous with your time and your advice, and we had the first of many great conversations. It feels like we've just had one long conversation with some breaks in between. I greatly appreciate the advice, and I echo the words of Commissioner Whalen on the mentorship and on Commissioner Stevenson on the leadership you've shown and the positions you've taken. And I know we haven't accomplished everything we've tried to do here, but I hope you're proud of what you've accomplished, and I respect you for your leadership and true to form even tonight, showing us leadership in your statements this evening. So thank you so much for your service to this township.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so lucky I have the best seat in the house because Anna's always next to me when we're here, except for the last year when I've enjoyed her on screen. But I just want to thank you so much for a wonderful friendship. I think we started off 6 years ago, and for two women who don't always see the world the same way. I think Anna and I have struck this incredible kinship despite policy differences, and it's exactly what we need in politics, and it's been such a joy serving with you. The nominations committee was my favorite, actually. I think it was because of exactly what Commissioner McKeon said, your ability to run such a fair and judgment-free meeting that is just very purposeful, and you end up getting some really great people. And I have been enriched by serving alongside you, so thank you, and I hope we can stay in touch, maybe not on Wednesdays.
And Commissioner Zella.
Thank you, President Bernheim. Anna, you and I had the pleasure, I guess, of serving as co-chairs of the Ad Hoc Traffic Safety Committee. It was such an easy topic, and the solutions were always right there. And it's one that, of course, everybody on this board and in the township has great interest and concerns about, and we worked together very well on that. I think we made a little progress with our new updated policy, and we're going to keep trying to do so. And you know, we also shared Ardmore and Bryn Mawr business districts, and we would talk at times when there were issues in Ardmore and you had questions about what we did in Bryn Mawr and vice versa, and it was, I think, benefited the community, and I appreciated that. And you are always very responsive to your community, but you were responsive, you know, when I would reach out, and so I appreciated that very much. And I wish you happiness with your grandchildren and enjoyable Wednesday nights. Thank you for your service.
Commissioner McComb.
I'm going to be very brief because there have been a lot of great comments. You've, in many ways, been the conscience of the board and speaking for those who really need a voice. And for that, I hope that even though you're not physically with us, that will carry over as we continue in the years ahead. Thank you.
And Vice President Gavin.
Thank you, President Bernheim. Anna, in addition to being the conscience of the board, I mean, the passion, the absolute passion that you have for this township, everything from the libraries to the parks to the residents, it is infectious, and I think all of us come onto this board with a passion and a desire to see this as a better township and contribute to this township. And for those of us who came on after you were already sitting, we look to you as an example, and it really, you do set that wonderful example for all of us, and I know that legacy will continue, so thank you. And the only thing I've seen that you have more of a passion for is your family and your grandkids, and I'm so thrilled for you that you are gonna get to spend the 30 hours a week or whatever you spend right now doing this with your family and enjoying your retirement from this. So wishing you all the best and thank you for everything.
Well,
Yeah, Todd.
Oh, Todd.
Commissioner Sinai, please.
Thank you. I'm now appreciating how visible people are here. Anna, it's obvious I was not going to miss this for anything. Thank you so much for your service to the township. I personally gained from it. I too met you before I ran on the board. We have served on committees together. I have benefited from your guidance. But really, I think the mark of one's tenure on the board is, are you able to make an impact and move the township in the direction that you feel strongly about? And even if you haven't moved it all the way in the direction that you feel strongly about, you've definitely moved it in that direction. And I can think of no greater tribute to your time on the board. Thank you so much, and personally, for your service. It takes a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of emotional time and energy to do what you have done. And I think we're all very grateful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And Anna, if I may, to sum it up just by one way, I think we all, another round of applause.
I can't thank you all enough. I really greatly appreciate it. I have to say, as a criminal defense lawyer, nobody ever says nice things about me like this, so I appreciate it very much.
We'll replay it in a couple courtrooms for you. But true to form, this is going to take us to our first committee meeting for the evening. And sprinting to the finish, we will recognize the chair of the library committee, none other than Commissioner Durbin.
Well, the library committee really does not have a huge amount tonight. We have, I'm going to move for consideration of the board to approve the appointment of Sarah Duffendock to the Lower Merion Library System Board of Directors effective January 1st, 2022 for a 2-year term until January 2024. I don't really think there's anything that we need our library director to say about that. They had an extensive interview process and she wowed everybody, and I think she'll be a great person for the board. So, is there a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Any comments from the other commissioners? Any public comment? All right, then I'll ask for a vote. All in favor for appointing Sarah Duffendock? Looks unanimous to me. Any opposed? All right. The other thing is, I think there is a slide that our delightful video people were going to pull up. Yes, this is the time of year when the Lower Merion libraries have a fundraiser. The boards of the libraries ask us to donate money. Each of the boards of each of the libraries works hard to add to the collections of the libraries, and that's where your money goes, and we really hope that a lot of people will remember the libraries at the end of the year. I will also say, as I said before, the Ardmore Library, which is close to my heart, has a delightful cookbook that's available for sale either online or at Ardmore Library that board put together with history of the Ardmore Library and a lot of recipes from interesting people in this township. So thank you very much for considering the libraries at the end of the year. All right, and that should conclude the business of the Library Committee.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Durbin. That will then bring us to our next committee meeting, which is the Finance Committee, and we'll recognize its co-chair, Vice President Gavin.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. We have 4 items on our agenda. The first is awarding of a contract about Ashbridge House Architectural and Engineering Services. I see our CFO is up at the podium, and Eric, if you want to share some information before we make a motion, that would be wonderful.
Before you, an issue briefing. It's kind of similar in format to the audit RFP award that you looked at back in November. I also believe we have our Assistant Township Manager, I believe, is also on Zoom in case there are specific questions, as he was on the selection committee related to this. So this involves the potential overall transition of Ashbridge House. So there is a need for architectural and engineering services in order to bring that facility into a state of good repair. The RFP was advertised, sent out to over 20 regional firms. We received 7 proposals. We had a selection committee. You can see how that was made up. It was a range of people, but they generally came to a consensus in terms of where and what direction the township should go. So of those 7 firms, 4 of those were deemed to be technically proficient, and then the firm Purdy O'Gwyn, when the cost component was added, was deemed to be the overall best value to the township. That overall cost is just over $102,000. This group is a small firm, but a firm with decades of experience in similar projects. Also, their 2 partners will be intimately involved, so we think that's a plus. And they had a very detailed proposal in terms of schedules and deliverables at each stage. So it was the selection committee's consensus that this would be the firm to move forward, to hopefully move this facility forward. In terms of finances, the contract price is within kind of the estimated range that staff had for this and will be funded by CDBG expenditures. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you very much, Eric. Before we have any questions, I will make a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to award a contract for Ashbridge House Architectural and Engineering Services to the following bidder in accordance with the proposals received on Thursday, November 4, 2021 at 11 a.m. prevailing time and the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer with the approval of the Director of Building and Planning, Purdy O'Gwyn Architects, in the total amount of $102,303. Do I have a second? Oh, thank you, Commissioner McComb. Any questions from the board for our CFO? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, any comments from the board? Seeing none as well, I guess we will call this for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. We will move on to the second item, which is an award of contract janitorial services. Eric, do you want to share some information on this one?
Sure. So this is a contract that comes up every few years. The contract is expiring at the end of this year, so this bid award is for the next calendar year with the option to renew it at the township's discretion for 3 subsequent calendar years, subject to CPI increases. Similarly to the last one, there is a interdepartmental selection committee that looked at all these proposals. It was advertised. It was bid through our Penn bid platform. We had a good response. However, we had a real variety of bids, which you see in the bid tab. The lowest bid was only a partial bid. It was rejected. The next lowest bid came from a company that really failed some of the basic bid standards in terms of the information that was required. And then, so we were left with kind of 3 firms of which we considered. And overall, Team Clean, who is the current vendor, was the selection of the overall selection committee. They've had this contract for the majority of the last decade, and they've really done a pretty solid job. High-quality service, been responsive to the township. And, as the issue briefing details, the selection committee had some concerns about some of the other bids which were in the same general cost range. Specifically in terms of windows and carpets, we bid that out separately through a quote process in 2018, and the price was around $40,000. I don't know where some of those bid proposals came in to try to clean windows at Ludington or on the 2nd or 3rd floor of this building. So we just did not feel that those bids were really valid and probably could lead to lots of change orders if the township proceeded. So in the end, the selection committee believed that Team Clean was the lowest responsive bidder on this contract. It will be paid out of the Public Works Facilities Maintenance General Fund budget, and we recommend moving forward with it.
Thank you very much, Eric. I will make a motion again to recommend to the Board of Commissioners Approval to award a contract for janitorial service to the following bidder in accordance with the bids received on Tuesday, November 18, 2021 at 11 a.m. prevailing time, and the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer with the approval of the Director of Public Works, Team Clean Inc., in a total lump sum bid of $329,951.64. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Zelov. Any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call it for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is, thank you very much, it's unanimous. It is, as President Bernheim said, a clean sweep. Sorry, I had to repeat that for all of you. And we will move on to our next item, which is about the non-union employee wage increase, item number 3 on the agenda. So I will make a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of non-union wage increase of 3% for all non-uniform management and non-union employees to be incorporated into the adopted 2022 budget. Do I have a second? President Bernheim, thank you. This is pretty self-explanatory, and I know the board has thought about this. So are there any comments or questions from the board before we call this for a vote? Are there any public comments or questions? Seeing none, we will call this for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Again, it's unanimous. We will move on to item number 4. Again, I will make a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of a wage increase of $4,076.80 for all police management employees to be incorporated into the adopted 2022 budget. Do I have a second? Thank you, President Bernheim. Are there any commissioner comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, any public comments or questions? Seeing none, and once again, I will call it for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's once again unanimous, and that very quickly disposes of the Finance Committee for the evening. The floor is all yours, President Bernheim.
Thank you very much, Vice President Gavin. That brings us to our Board of Commissioners meeting, and I'm going to ask if everybody would be so kind as to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and afterwards, please remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask if you be so kind to remain standing in that. We lost another one of our former commissioners of Ward 10, Howard West Jr., and I know Commissioner Zeloff wanted to make a comment or so.
Thank you, President Bernheim. Howard West served this community in a remarkable way. He was a Lower Merion Township Commissioner in Ward 10 from 1979 until 1997. He served for 18 years. He was a board member of the Marion Fire Company of Ardmore for 40 years. He was president of the Knox Home in Wynwood for 40 years. He served as president of the Ardmore Rotary Association. Howard West was a member at Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church for 60 years, and that is where his memorial service will be on January 14th at 11 a.m. As commissioner, he served with integrity. He was very conscientious, and he cared deeply and was dedicated, cared deeply about this community. Howard L. West Jr. was 94 when he died on December 1st, 2021. Now, if we could all have a moment of silence in his memory.
Thank you. Commissioners off, thank you very much.
Thank you, President Bernheim.
With that, ask our Township Secretary to be so kind as to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Churchill.
Here.
Mr. Courtney.
Present.
Ms. Durbin.
Here.
Mr. Gavin.
Present.
Mr. Grimes. Ms. Kramer. Mr. McComb.
Here.
Mr. McKeon.
Here.
Ms. O'Neill.
Here.
Mr. Sinai.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Present.
Mr. Whalen.
Here.
Mr. Zillow.
Here.
Mr. Bernheim.
Present.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The first order of business then is to approve the minutes of our meeting of the board held on November 17, 2021 as distributed. Do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Gavin. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand indicating your approval. Any who object to that? Seeing none, the minutes are so approved. Also, a quick couple announcements, if I may. We did meet an executive session on December 8, as well as a little bit earlier this evening, to review some litigation matters, some personnel matters, some items involving the Lower Merion School District, and some matters regarding coronavirus. Can't wait till that gets off our list. And 1400 Mill Creek Road. The Christmas Day holiday will be observed on December 24, and New Year's Day holiday will be observed on Friday, December 31. These are legal holidays. The Township Administration Building and libraries will be closed for business, and there will be no refuse or recycling collection. The 67 biennial reorganization meeting of the Board of Commissioners will be held on Monday, January 3rd, 2022, at 7 p.m. here in this room at the Township Building. That brings us to the next section of our meeting, which is public privilege of the floor. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on non-agenda items, but items that are within the jurisdiction of the township. We do ask that people keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. And we will first see if there is anybody in the audience who would like to take this opportunity for public privilege. Please, approach the podium.
Good evening, Maura Gillen, Haverford. I just wanted to speak on an issue of process. During the township budget discussions earlier on, I was pleased to see and hear the secretary note that she was looking at options to allow more public access to the work of the bodies below the level of committee, the various boards and commissions, etc., in part by ensuring that those meetings were recorded and then perhaps also archived on the website, similar to the committee and Board of Commissioners meetings. And I've been pleased by the expansion of the access to the HARB and the Historic Commission made possible through Zoom and the hard work of Mr. Greg Pritchard. And I would love to see those recorded Zoom meetings posted so others who may not be available at the time of the meetings might also then witness those proceedings. Of more importance, however, I'd like to see draft minutes from the meetings posted prior to the next level meeting, whether that be another level commission or a committee. I understand that meeting minutes can't be approved until the next meeting of that same body, just as you just did. But I have a significant concern, if I have a significant concern about an agenda item, I don't generally have a problem with showing up at each meeting in succession to make my concerns known, but it seems like we could be more efficient. If my comments are already on record, for example, at a HARB, they should be available at the next level meeting, whether that be Planning Commission or Building and Planning Committee. I'd like to know that the Building and Planning Committee has already seen and heard my comments rather than having me come to the podium again. So if draft minutes could be posted, I think that would be valuable input to each level body. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to take this opportunity for public privilege?
Hello. Adrian Seltzer, Wynwood. I have about 13 points here. I have placed a flow chart that was part of the 2022 budget at each of your seats. Please notice who is at the top of that flow chart. Point 2, just because you've always done something one way doesn't make it right. Point 3, constituents shouldn't have to jump through hoops to view and comment during a commissioner's meeting. Zoom is continually updating security, and putting out a registration link that people can use anytime is safe. I am happy to give your staff lessons free of charge. Constituents who come to meetings are not paid. We live here and pay taxes and have a right to have our opinions heard. We do appreciate that you have all stepped up to run for your positions, and we thank you for your service. If a meeting is called for a certain time, it should start at approximately that time. Keeping us waiting more than 10 or 15 minutes without anyone updating us is rude and disrespectful. Please see the flow chart. Starting a meeting late and then complaining at about the time when constituents wish to comment is also disrespectful. An agenda item that will obviously involve community concerns shouldn't be scheduled last. That gives the impression that you are hoping that everyone leaves before the topic comes up. You mentioned here that a lot happens during the end of the year, towards the end of the year. May I recommend that you start the budget and CIP discussions earlier in the year so that they can be broken down into an extra meeting or two. It's like when I complain I can't get everything done in one day, my hubby says, get up earlier. It's annoying to hear, but time management helps. Meetings should not run past 11 o'clock. There are already examples of errors made and tempers being short at that time, especially me. Meetings that are too long are also not effective. When constituents do speak, please pay attention and acknowledge their comments. When you do respond, please try not to be demeaning. Commissioner comments on a topic should come first, and that's exactly how it was done during the Finance Committee today, so that your constituents, so I'm asking for that at all times, that your comments should come first and the constituents follow. That way we can ask for clarification or respond to misinformation or clarify misunderstandings. Doing community comments first without a chance for a rebuttal on 12 or clarification is frustrating and inappropriate. And 13, thank you for your attention. Good evening.
Yeah, that works. Go ahead.
These are sort of general comments. First and foremost, I would agree. I want to thank each commissioner sincerely. I wish I could say it personally to each of you for your service. I now know after 10 years of attending these meetings what a difficult and time-consuming job this is, and also from our own commissioner, and also the township staff for everything you do and being responsive to the questions that the residents pose. So I thank all of you. I'm here tonight to ask you to consider adding one more task to your job going forward in your work, and that is to add a mechanism to somehow have a reevaluation for the past decisions that you have made that have had an impact on the lives of residents and the township, particularly those decisions that have had pushback from the community or the residents or the civic associations. In order to keep my remarks brief, I will mention just a few examples that come to mind in my experience over the last 10 years. In Ardmore, where is the new train station that was part of the redevelopment project that was so controversial because of the height waiver, the parking lot that was given up for a parking garage, et cetera? All I see is a fenced-off parking lot there for years now, and no new train station, and that $10 million grant, I don't know what happened to that. The developers pushed for new apartments, feet on the ground, top restaurants, et cetera. The original developer is long gone, sold the property, and I'm not sure what happened with the train station. So some kind of an evaluation. Let's look back. How could that have been handled better? How can we actually get a new train station? Number 2, Ballackinwood, NOBA. There was a big campaign. We were going to have art galleries, restaurants, shops, the 3 new apartment buildings. It sounded like a good thing. We did get the Union Avenue Bridge redone. The rest, it looks like an abandoned, I don't even know what, empty buildings, a giant hole in the ground across from the BMW agency. If you don't go there regularly, go there and take a look. It's not what was promised at all. What did we learn? How can we do better? How can you do better with a reevaluation? Rock Hill Road, too much to even begin to go into there. It's starting to look good after a long time, and the City Avenue district I'll talk about at the next public comment. I feel that the developers come in with promises. How can we follow up with these promises and make sure that it's better? I don't know, but there should be a mechanism. With schools and institutions, my main experience is with one institution. Again, they arrive with promises, agreements to hard-won conditions of approval. Oh, that was fast. Anyway, so I'll finish up with saying I believe that this kind of disregard has led to a general feeling of betrayal of public trust in local government, and then that leads to a lack of trust in all kinds of government. And we're depending on you. If we can't rely on our local government, then the people don't trust the government at the top either. So it starts with you, and we need you to be there to represent us, or else we're not going to depend on the rest of them either. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silk. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm John Willis. I'm from North Ardmore. I usually come up here and rise to complain or to criticize, but this time I'm going to do something different since it's the end of the year. I want to compliment so many of the employees in this township. Number one, the wonderful, wonderful sanitation workers that we have that collect the trash and collect the recyclables. They do it unfailingly on a timely, professional, and almost perfect basis. And they've done it in the past 2 years. It's really extraordinary. And they should be given a tremendous amount of credit. The Public Works Department, the transfer station, I don't know what's going on down there, but the people just seem to be a little more cordial, nicer, cooperative. And I give them an A-. I'd give them an A+, but I miss the pit. I really would like to have the pit come back. But I understand the township's insurance company may not like that. I can't believe I'm going to praise the Building and Planning Department since I frequently do not like some of the decisions that they make. However, whenever I ask the Building and Planning Department by email or by showing up at the counter for information, unfailingly, within like 24 hours and sometimes within an hour, they provide me with the information. And they provide me with information on a subject that is very, very important to me and many, many other people who are concerned about the environment in this township. And then finally, the Public Works Department. I think they do a remarkable job. I do miss the candy bowl with the chocolates, but the GIS computer program that you have is absolutely extraordinary. And recently I asked Mr. Phillips, the GIS tech, whether I could, he could find some information about a culvert that was built about 120 years ago. He went above and beyond, found the photostats of the building plans that were made for that culvert on County Line Road. This is in relationship to Oakwell, which is the area that's going to be clear cut if the school district gets its way. And finally, but most importantly, it's wonderful that the township employees understand and take to heart the most important principles in the spirit of Pennsylvania Sunshine Law. Never have I been told, well, file an RTK request. You got to do it this way. Why do you want that? We need to talk to my boss. Without a doubt, with every situation, they have provided me that information. So thank you. Someone's doing a good job, but I'll have lots of complaints and criticisms probably next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willis. We were just about to amend that 3-minute rule and keep you up there.
Yeah, I could have listened to that for a while, especially when he was talking about my brother-in-law, Rob Phillips, who is very thorough and can be relied on in all manners. So I thank you for giving him a shout out and everyone else at the township because they're equally deserving. as are all of you. So
Well, we know
as
who you are. Will you
you
just
know who I
announce-
am, and I
announce
just
yourself?
wanted to say very quickly on behalf of, okay, so first I want to say, as a Walker and the Walker family representing us, have been in Ardmore for 60 years, Howard West was a dear colleague and friend of my father's, who was, my father was the master locksmith for not only the residents, but for Lower Merion Township, Lower Merion Police Department, and Lower Merion School District. And he and Mr. West had a very fond and long-lasting relationship, and I did not know of his passing, but on behalf of our family and the residents, I would like to offer our condolences, not only to you, especially to his family. I'm just a little shaken up about that. But moving on, I just wanted to take a minute on behalf of the residents to thank Anna for all of your service, for your stoic manner of representing the public. Whether we saw eye to eye on issues or not, you always are very respectful of people's opinion, and you take time out of your day that nobody would even know that you've left your professional desk to come handle something for the community and public, members of the public. So there aren't really any words that we can say about how much we're going to miss your leadership, how much we appreciate everything you've done, how grateful we are for the effects that your fellow commissioners have all expressed they will take with them and carry on the work, and a lot of that comes from your diligence. And so if I can just approach long enough to give her flowers, I would love to do that from the public. Is that
Why
okay?
not?
Okay, thank you all.
Don't throw them.
Never.
Thanks, too sweet, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak at public privilege? Please, go ahead.
4 points. The first is the CIP where there's a project.
And can you speak more into the
My
mic?
apologies,
Thanks.
thank you. The first is the CIP, the project VIL1 for a sidewalk along County Line Road for 4 properties. It costs us about $1 million to the township, but there are no contributions to pay for the sidewalk from the 2 residences in Stoneleigh at 3 of the 4 properties. This is in contrast to the 4th property, 1835, where the entire cost of that portion of the sidewalk will be paid by the property owner, the school district. My question is, why the disparity? One singular sidewalk in the township requires only 1 out of the 4 property owners to pay. What characteristics singled out the school district for having to pay for that section of the sidewalk? Is this an arbitrary allocation of funds for some property owners but not others, and is this morally right? If this board denies the athletic fields for the middle schools, will this sidewalk still be demanded? Will the school district be paying for a sidewalk while it receives nothing in the way of needed athletic fields? Contrast that project with VIL6, the intersection improvements at Montgomery Avenue and North Spring Road, which arose out of a condition of approval for building Black Rock Middle School. There's no question that the $500,000 condition of approval from this board violates the municipal planning code. I'm concerned that some of you will argue this was an agreed upon condition, but this is not true. The school district needed to begin this project on time to have the new school open in the fall of 2023. Going to court would have pushed the opening of the new school by about a year, if not more. Many commissioners knew of this timeline to open the school and demanded the fee anyway. However, there is time to correct this. You do not need to take this money. It is a CIP. You can rewrite it and do without the school district's contribution. My third request is addressing 1835 County Line Road and 1800 Montgomery Avenue. I once asked Mr. Gavin at an intergovernmental meeting if he would consider moving these structures as an effort to preserve them. He said no. Well, what do the rest of you think? My ask is for you as commissioners to reach out to Natural Lands Trust, ask them if they are willing to have the structures relocated onto their 40 acres. It is true Natural Lands doesn't have to take them. However, if you never ask, we'll never know what they say. I would also point out if they do move them, land development will kick in, and we know that takes time. My last point is just a general point. So much conversation in this room is about increasing walkability, but indeed the sidewalk project I mentioned earlier is supposed to increase walkability. Yet our zoning code favors car parking. Probably 3/4 of an acre or more on the proposed athletic fields at 1835 will be dedicated to car parking. Yet a review of on-street parking at the neighborhood shows plenty of underutilized parking, such that this parking lot is superfluous. Just imagine what we as a community could have done to build needed athletic fields without sacrificing limited real estate for car parking. We actually prioritize what we said are our priorities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Clem, and I represent the owners of 1956 Montgomery Avenue, 1946 Montgomery Avenue, 1920 Montgomery Avenue, 1972 Montgomery Avenue, and 2000 Montgomery Avenue. They all have driveways which enter onto Montgomery Avenue in Lower Marion Township. Starting in August, I began communicating with the township engineer regarding the deplorable conditions along Montgomery Avenue caused by the lack of maintenance of the stormwater system, the increased construction upstream, including the new school building, and the utility work being performed in and under Montgomery Avenue. I spoke to the township engineer in August and explained to him that the adverse conditions were continuing to degrade curbs, driveways, and other improvements along Montgomery Avenue. In addition, at one location in particular, that's 2000 Montgomery Avenue, with even a moderate rainfall, the stormwater cascades down the side of the road carrying construction and other debris with it and empties unabated into a creek which runs along Montgomery Avenue, which appears to eventually join Gulf Creek. We believe that may be a protected waterway, and we're checking on that now. In any event, the degradation of that waterway has been going on for a long time, and it's getting worse all the time. In September, I received a response from the township engineer in which he indicated the township had investigated the situation and had had discussions with the Township Department of Public Works regarding paving, preparatory inlet work, curb conditions, and stormwater runoff along the roadway. He indicated that utility work and other heavy construction projects along Montgomery Avenue were scheduled to continue through at least October 2021. In fact, they're still ongoing. And for that reason, repaving of the various areas of Montgomery Avenue would only be done as part of the 2022 paving program, sometime in the summer of 2022. He indicated that the existing stormwater inlets along the roadway would be maintained or repaired as needed in advance of putting down new paving. He ended by saying that any damaged or missing granite curbing along the property frontage of my clients would be the responsibility of my clients, and that that work would have to be done before any roadway paving began. He further indicated that my clients should review the conditions of their driveway entrances to see if any pavement profiling should be done to encourage stormwater to continue past the paved openings to their driveways. As you can imagine, that was not well received, since all the damage was being caused by third parties to their properties. I responded to the township engineer on September 6th and advised him that my clients were concerned that if the utility work along Montgomery Avenue concluded at the end of October, which it hasn't, but the repaving would not be performed until the summer of the next year, the adverse stormwater conditions damaging my clients' properties would continue unabated for 6 months or more, which so far has proven to be the case. Not only does this create a safety hazard for my clients and their families as they enter and leave their properties, but it will also continue to degrade the creek and potentially Gulf Creek. So I won't go on with the rest of this. I think some of you may be aware of this. Bottom line is, this is an ongoing dangerous condition that's going to get worse as winter becomes colder, the temperatures drop, and some of those waters freeze. It's the township, as I understand it, the township, either under agreement with PennDOT or otherwise, has agreed to maintain Montgomery Avenue and the stormwater facilities. That is not being done. And we would much prefer to actually get a result by having a discussion with township officials to get it done, because the alternative is that we simply have to file suit, which is not accrue to the benefit of anybody. All it does is it increases time and expense for all concerned. I've had discussions with Mr. McNeely. I've had discussions with the township engineer. It hasn't gotten us anywhere. So we're kind of at the end of our rope. I would appreciate some kind of affirmative, definitive response in the short term, and we will certainly be happy to discuss this with whoever is willing to come up with a solution, and help us to come up with a solution. And if not, then we'll do what we got to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. In the future, when people come forward, if you'd be so kind as to keep your mask on. I know it's hard to speak and a little bit difficult for us to hear, but we're trying to adhere to that policy, so thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to take the opportunity for a public privilege of the floor? All right. Let me note that we did receive a couple written comments, one from Maria Kefelis, and if I've mispronounced your name, Maria, my apologies, of Ballackinwood, who wrote regarding location of marijuana dispensaries in Ballackinwood. And we received something from Jonathan Shapiro on behalf of the DCLMN, writing in support of a 15-hour minimum wage for the township employees and in support of allocating ARP funds to those with an immediate need. At this point, is there anybody on the board who would like to respond to some of the comments in public privilege? Commissioner McKeon.
Thank you very much, President Bernheim. First, I want to respond to Ms. Seltzer's comment about the timing of issues. I think that's a fantastic point to raise. And these are my notes for the budget. And on the first page, I wrote that this is a reminder to myself and to our board. June 23rd, 2021, we had a CIP workshop. August 2nd, 2021, we had a general fund financial forecast. September 9th, 2021, we had a budget workshop. Those are opportunities for members of the public and commissioners to get involved, raise concerns, and we see even as a board a lot of times that potential budget increases, budget items aren't added until after September 9th. So it's something I think that we can all work on, but it's kind of a reminder, I think, to the whole township that June, August, and September, that's a good time to bring out issues so that they're not crammed out at the end where we don't have enough time to discuss them. And just to Ms. Silk's point about Rock Hill Road, earlier this year, a pizza shop was open near the corner of Belmont and Rock Hill. In February 2022, a high-end senior living center is supposed to open that will allow residents to age in place. It'll provide 80 jobs. Commissioner Gavin and I were just there for a dedication earlier this month, so it looks great. And the last thing I wanted to say just to Mr. Willis, his comments about Public Works, the director, Paul McElhenney's here tonight. I think Public Works did a fantastic job during throughout the coronavirus. You may not realize it as residents sometimes, but there's been a lot, in order to maintain refuse collection, lots of township employees who may not be generally refuse collectors, they have had to switch roles. And that's enabled us to keep the refuse getting picked up on a weekly basis, other people offering to pitch in. And we've seen Upper Darby, Philadelphia, other municipalities have had problems where they just haven't been able to get everything picked up. So Director McElhenney and his whole crew top to bottom, I think, have done a really fantastic job keeping us going. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for making those comments, Commissioner McKee and Commissioner Zella.
Thank you, President Bernheim. And to add on to Commissioner McKeon and specifically responding to Ms. Seltzer, the times on our agendas are estimates, and they are estimates because we don't know how long it's going to take to discuss a matter, whether it's in a permitted closed session, permitted by state law, or out here. And our secretary uses her experience and makes her best judgment. I think a lot of times the longer items that will take us longer are towards the end of an agenda so that we can get through the smaller items that'll have typically less discussion and get through those more quickly. I think that's been our approach. I agree that our meeting should end at 11 p.m. Now, when we're listening, sometimes we're also taking notes. And I would submit that that's an even better form of listening. That does not mean we're ignoring. And finally, this is not Ms. Seltzer, this is Ms. Silk. The SEPTA, the Ardmore train station is a fully funded SEPTA project that has been somewhat delayed by COVID. And that's where it stands. It is not a township project, but it's fully funded, and I think we all look forward to its conclusion and to a brand new train station in Ardmore. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner McComb.
Thank you, President Bernheim. I just wanted to briefly respond to Ms. Silk's comment about the stalled project on Bala Avenue. I share your frustration. All of us in Ballackinwood are unhappy about the progress of this, but what you're seeing is not the way it's going to stay. I've been in regular contact with Chris Leswing, our Director of Building and Planning, who's been in touch with the developer. There's some financial issues with the developer that I can't get into. If you want to have an offline conversation with me, I'm happy to do that, but we're working on it. We're going to make sure that that situation is addressed and we have a building there that we can be proud of. Thank you. We actually don't really do back and forth, but if you want to contact me, you can reach me through, you can call me or on send me an email. Thank you.
No, we'll make sure that we get communication back and forth. Yeah, Vice President Gavin.
Great, thank you, President Bernheim. I want to respond, obviously, to Mr. Driscoll's comments. First thing is, there was a question on whether the sidewalk on County Line would continue, whether the middle school fields end up staying where they're planned or not. In my mind, the answer is an absolute yes. These are sidewalks that were needed before Stoneleigh was put in place. These were sidewalks that were needed before the plans for the middle school. You have residential neighborhoods connecting to Villanova University, connecting all the way into Bryn Mawr, connecting to the Villanova train station, connecting to now Stoneleigh, and connecting to potentially the new middle school fields. You have a road, County Line Road, which is a narrow road with cars going very fast. You have students and residents walking down that road. It is a very dangerous situation, and it is something that has been needed for a long time and is something that continues to be needed with all of the institutions that are appropriate for the residents to go to. You are absolutely correct that Lower Merion Township should not be paying for this entire sidewalk. And while it does say that, and you're right in the CIP, that is a misstatement. That is a plan that hasn't been fleshed out. In fact, Director of Public Works, Paul McElhaney, and I this morning were over at the Radnor Traffic Safety Meeting, talking with Radnor Township. We've had conversations with Natural Lands. We've obviously had conversations with the Lower Merion School District. We've had a lot of conversations with a lot of entities. This is a challenging project, not because it's a hard sidewalk in particular, not because it is something where it's not clear if it's needed. It's a hard project because you have a number of institutions that are involved, the ones that I just mentioned, and getting everyone on board together is something, one, that we need to do, two, something that we will do, and three, something that everyone will be contributing to this sidewalk, whether it's currently in the CIP or not. We don't have the breakdown yet. We're still working through this process, but that is something that we are working towards. So that's my comments on the sidewalk itself. As for the corner of Montgomery and Spring Mill, I'm very confused about the comment that it violates municipal planning. This was agreed to. What the school district's motivation, whether they felt they had to agree, whether they agreed because they thought it was the right thing to do, because this school is changing the character of this neighborhood, whatever the school district's motivation was, the school district agreed to it. And because they agreed to it, I believe it does not violate any municipal planning. This was not forced upon the school. This was something that was agreed to. The school itself is having a huge impact on a neighborhood that has not had a 1,200 person school. It not only is a school planned, but also fields, 11 acres of fields are planned on the other side of this neighborhood. With all that said, the neighbors have been absolutely wonderful throughout this process. There obviously have been complaints when the school district hasn't responded to issues that have been caused by the construction, but overall this neighborhood has been supportive to a massive change to this quiet residential neighborhood, yet it's been a supportive neighborhood. So having the school district recognize that they should be contributing to some of what is changing in this neighborhood is, in my mind, absolutely appropriate. And I'm glad that the school district agreed to help contribute to the Montgomery and Spring Mill intersection because it's something that they should do. It's the right thing to do, whether it was legally required or not, and it was agreed to by the school district. I am very heartened by what I'm seeing from the new leadership on the school board and our new superintendent, who has been very willing to engage with the township and have a wonderful dialogue. And I think moving forward, we have a real opportunity to work together to create something that works wonderfully for our amazing school district as well as for our neighborhood. And I believe that moving forward, we will have a wonderful new school that serves the community very well and also works very well within our neighborhood. So I'm very heartened to see what we're doing moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Gavin. Anybody else who wishes to respond to public privilege? I'm going to be extraordinarily brief. One, thanking everybody for coming forward. Ms. Walker, that was an extraordinarily nice thing you did for Commissioner Durbin. And Ms. Gillen, we are indeed working on the concept of access to these committees and what we can do towards that. If something good comes out of the pandemic, some of the technology in order to keep people more engaged, that indeed is something that we're working on to do. And then, Ms. Silk, we do reevaluate and evaluate constantly amongst ourselves, and be it up here from time to time. In fact, we invited Cmte to come here and speak about the Ardmore train station because we had the same questions that you did. What's going on and what's happening? We get, it's access to anybody, what Cmte's budgets and where they set forth which train stations go when and where. And we've had some communications with them trying to get them to, get this one to go forward. We did our part. We're looking to see that they can do theirs. And Mr. Clem, appreciate you coming forward to say, let's see what we can do, as opposed to, having to file lawsuits. I do not know anything about the substance of your issue other than what you stated here, but I will tell you that, we'll get back to you, on this to find out, what's happening and what can be done. If the worst that happens is we agree to disagree, it'll at least be done with a complete communication so that if we can avoid having to, do something by filing lawsuits or defending lawsuits, that effort will be made, and I make that commitment to you. And then the last thing, I just feel compelled to say, because it strikes a nerve to hear that the people on this board either don't pay attention or don't listen to folks when they come forward. Nothing could be further than the truth. There's an extraordinarily attentive board. Listen to what happened. We comment about comments, not just in the response here, but at later points in time. And this is part of the process of a legislative body open to the public. And I don't want anybody to think that we do not listen carefully to what's said and appreciate people when they come forward to say it. So with that will move us to the next section of our meeting, which is public comment. And this is for items which are on our agenda. And this would include any of the ordinances which are going to be considered for adoption this evening. Again, those same rules of engagement. We do ask that you would try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And again, these are for agenda items. Please.
Laura Gillen again, Haverford. I want to address item 11, the CDBG-CV funding allocation for Neighbors Helping Neighbors, which was discussed at the Grants and Community Development Committee meeting last week. I don't know if you know it, but while we were waiting for that meeting to start, Ms. Seltzer kindly took us through a little seated yoga. We did some deep breathing exercises, which I really do think composed us and allowed us to remain calm throughout the course of the evening, even as things got a little bit frustrating. I know you all work hard to maintain decorum and to follow protocol and procedure with the objective of ensuring the best possible governance of this municipality. But sometimes a voice from the audience is necessary. Following Ms. Seltzer's emphatic exclamation, "She's right here," referring to Ms. Walker, the founder of Neighbors Helping Neighbors on the main line, I couldn't help but note the difference between the process used in the Grants Committee meeting and the process used in the Building and Planning Committee meeting that followed. For items on the B&P agenda, the applicant, the property owner, developer, or their representative, is invited to speak after the staff presentation, and commissioners can then ask questions directly of that applicant to gain clarity, confirm understanding, or express a concern that might then be fully addressed. I would ask you to consider offering that same process to the Grants Committee. Not that a property owner seeking additional funds to repair a water heater would be expected to present themselves to you, but for those agenda items that may be more robust, the direct engagement with the applicant as part of the process could be very valuable. I think there's a parallel to be drawn between a nonprofit agency seeking grant funds and a developer seeking accommodations. You may have already identified this opportunity yourselves, but I wanted to call it out for full consideration. Some inaccurate commissioner comments were made last week that could have been better framed as questions to which the applicant could have responded, and I believe Ms. Walker is prepared to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gillen. Anybody else who would like to take the opportunity for public comment? Again, this is on agenda items.
Hi, good evening again. Thank you. I appreciate the support. It was rather hard to sit there through some of the things that were being said about me and our budget and Neighbors Helping Neighbors that weren't accurate, or at least there was not full consideration to what was being presented. So one of the things that I would really like to clarify, because there was quite a bit of comments about the budget that we submitted. First of all, it was the very first budget we submitted. No mention was made to the in-kind column for the work that right from the beginning everybody was offering to do at no cost. And also, there were a couple things I want to clear up about your announcement about the executive director position for $90,000 and the operation manager's position for $50,000. Like I said, that even in that first budget, it was aspirational budget. It does say projected. Those numbers were not derived by us. They were derived by professionals in the field. We approached two separate entities. They both concurred and gave us those numbers, and we, from the very beginning, said that we would do, in the very least, we would do 50% of all of the work and the monies in kind. That's in writings officially to the township. I would hope that that would have been considered. We did not even receive 50%. I can tell you we're coming up in 2 months, we'll be in 2 years operation, and I've yet to receive even $30,000. And I don't mind even telling you that personally, I exhausted my own $50,000 of my savings to keep myself afloat while I do this work. So the numbers, they don't add up and they don't justify. I want to explain to you, because we did use two professional places, like I said, and one of the women, I reached out to both of them, and I said, okay, please clarify. They assured me, both of them gave me numbers that our budget numbers are right down the middle, not too low, not too high. And she said that there were a few reasons why we had to submit in that manner. And one of it was, she said that the budgets are built with sustainability and roles in mind, not specific people. Therefore, an executive director, and all positions really, need to be budgeted appropriately and at market rate. This relates to sustainability, because if the director ever stepped down, well, the organization would need to find someone to fill that position. If it's not budgeted appropriately, they would not be able to find another person to fill the role, and the organization would suffer as a result. Secondly, she said that many funders look at an organization's ability to appropriately budget as a level of knowledge of the landscape and sophistication of the organization itself. I'm sorry, this won't take but a minute. For many funders, it would be a negative not to appropriately budget for staff positions. In an organization that does not have the revenue to support the staff expenditures, especially for startups such as NHN, the staff ends up contributing much of their salary as in-kind or donated time. The goal of this organization would be to raise enough funds to pay their staff at appropriate rates eventually. In this case, the market rates that we used for your budget are appropriate in my view. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, because anything can look a certain way on one piece of paper, but if you don't consider what's written everywhere and what's actually being done and what the intent and the purpose is, then you really are not going to get at any sound answer. And unfortunately, that one-liner last week caused a lot of hubbub in the public that wasn't necessary, and for me it was hurtful, and it also added a ton of work to my schedule this last week when I'm already pretty much overwhelmed both financially and in time. So I just would hope and invite you for us to have a better relationship where I'm an open book when it comes to my company. And as you see, I just revealed personal information about my own savings account, which I did not intend to do. But I'm an open book, and I'm always available to sit down and talk, and I welcome it. I ask for it. So I just wanted to extend that for, as we work together in the future. And so aptly, you talked about the workers in the refuge department and such, and how they pitched in and they went to other positions and they did whatever they had to do to pull it off for the township. And what I want to remind you is that their family members receive services from Neighbors Helping Neighbors. And, you know, that's why I asked you, just pitch in and help us help everybody the way everybody is trying to pitch in and help you and our township and each other. We just got to get through this pandemic together. So please, let's just do it together. Thank you for giving me all that extra time. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, Ms. Walker. Anybody else who would like to speak at public comment?
Adrian Seltzer, Wynwood. I just wanted to speak in support of Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I've done work with them. They do a lot of really good stuff in the township. It's really important that we help the people who need the help in our township. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seltzer.
Barbara Silk from Marion. I want to clarify, are you making the nominations for the City Avenue Special Services this evening? I don't see, I saw that online, which was sent to me, but I don't see it in the paperwork here. So I don't want to speak on something that's not being.
It's on consent.
Yes?
This is a consent item, as I recollect. If you wish to comment on it, feel free.
I wanted to comment on it, but I didn't see it in this packet. Anyway, okay, so there are 3 nominations. 2 are being elected and then adding another name. And I just wanted to say that from what I could find out about this district, City Avenue Special Services District, that there are, it's either 14 or 17 members, I can't sort that out, and then 8 ex officio that are miscellaneous officials, state officials, and local officials. But 4 of them, if we add Mr. Kender, will be St. Joe's representatives. I think having 4 from one organization is a lot, and it's various businesses, along City Avenues, cross properties who are not on City Avenue but near City Avenue, and no one represents the neighbors that are impacted by this, what goes on City Avenue, restriping, closures, construction. St. Joe's has permission now to, and money from the state to build a tunnel underpass that will not benefit anybody but St. Joe's. But all of that impacts the neighbors in Ballackinwood and Marion particularly, and the rest of the people that use City Avenue. So I don't think that having 4 members from one organization seems exactly fair when you have 14 members. So I would just like to say, to take that into consideration when you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silk. Anybody else who would like to take the opportunity to address the board during public comment? Seeing none, then I will ask if there are any members of the board who would like to respond to public comment. Vice President Gavin.
Thank you, President Bernheim. I'd like to respond to Ms. Walker, and I apologize if you took anything personally, because nothing that was said last week was a personal attack on you, or should have been, or on Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I will repeat, I am thankful and grateful for the work that you and the organization does. It's been abundantly clear from everyone who's made public comment, from the submissions you've made, that significant work is being done to help this community. So that has never been an issue. I don't think anyone on this board has asked that or has in any way degraded the work that you're doing. The challenge is we are stewards of taxpayer money, and we do need to look at the budgets that are submitted, and your point about in-kind versus actual, what the cash is very important. And as you look at the budget, and which is the money that you're asking from Lower Marion Township versus how it's being spent, even without the in-kind, if I'm reading it correctly, it says $110,000 of the $187,000 budget is for executive and operations manager. And that's taking out in kind. That's 59% of the budget. And I'm not saying that you're not worth it, because clearly the work you're doing is so worthwhile. So that's not the point. The question is, can this township and should this township spend taxpayer money to go to that purpose? And everything that I've seen and all the research I've done, and I know it's taken a lot of your time, it's taken a lot of my time and everyone on this board's time as well, doing this work and researching it and seeing what makes sense, is the administrative costs for charity are usually in that 15 to 20% range. And here, when you're talking about in the budget where salary is 59% just to two salaries, and again, that's what's submitted, and maybe I'm wrong, and we can talk offline, and we've heard comments tonight about there's not a back and forth here. Just because there's not a back and forth here doesn't mean there's not a back and forth, period. There are discussions that are had. I know I had discussions with Emily Crane, who's had discussions with you. I know a lot of members of this board have had discussions directly with you. So there is a lot of give and take, even if it can't be done here, because we do have the constraints of not going till midnight every night. And there's a lot of business and all of the things we've heard tonight. There's a lot that we're trying to cover. We can't go back and forth all night, but it doesn't mean we can't do it outside of these meetings, and we do it. And I think everyone on this board is committed to doing that. But when I see this budget and I see how it's laid out, whether it's accurate or not, but this is what's been submitted to the township, I can't support spending taxpayer money when I'm seeing such a high percent going to administrative costs. And again, it's not a comment on the organization, it's not a comment on you, it's not a comment on the work you're doing. It is, I'm trying to do what's best in balancing the needs of the township with our budget, and hopefully that's coming through. And that's really kind of why I'm saying where I'm saying, and I wanted to explain that again to you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner McComb.
Thank you, President Burnham. I was going to respond to your comments about the City Avenue Special Services District. As you pointed out, there are ex officio members of the board, including state representatives. Commissioner Sinai and I are both members of the board, ex officio, attend all the board meetings. The CEO of the Special Services District regularly attends meetings of the Neighborhood Club of Pelicanwood, civic engagement groups and so forth. So anyone who has any interest in things that are taking place on City Avenue is always welcome to participate. I take a little offense at your comment that the underpass on City Avenue between the two parts of the St. Joe's campus doesn't benefit residents. We've had a couple of pedestrian fatalities on City Avenue. I can't think of anything more important than providing safety to students who happen to be living in Lower Merion Township while attending St. Joe's, so they're not mowed over by drivers on City Avenue. So I think that's important. That's the type of thing that we really should be paying attention to, and I think the City Avenue Special Services District does an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McComb. Commissioner O'Neill.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to address a couple of things relating to last week's Grants Committee and the process that I used to run the meeting. And I just want to say that I feel like that the board is actually better served when we hear from members of the public first, because you guide and teach us and you point out things that we would normally not otherwise hear. And I'm proud to be deferential toward members of the public, particularly in the Grants Committee meetings. There may be other commissioners when they're running their committees that maybe there are different ways of doing it, but I feel compelled to really kind of stick up for that process a little bit, because especially when it's something as fundamental as public service grant award winners, these are very important that we get feedback first. And some of the questions were better. I'm certainly, Manira Walker and I had a 30-minute conversation from 4:45 to 5:15 prior to the meeting, where she was absolutely encouraged to speak, and sort of telling her what to do, which is not my place. I can make suggestions. And I am so proud that she and I had a chance to talk and to work through many questions that may have altered the funding. So I just want to publicly say that there was nothing that was left out or done behind closed doors, or not with Manira and I and staff speaking all day long and weeks of this. So I want to apologize if there are people who are misinformed about the level of communication that I personally shared with this applicant, and how important of a role that helping neighbors plays in our community. And if I ever misled or gave anybody the impression that that wasn't how I personally felt, please email me to discuss further. So thank you.
Anybody else with any response to public comment? Seeing none, then we will move forward to our next item, but just quickly noting the anomaly that there's concerns about how long we go, and there's concerns that we're not listening to public to the comments, but we just spent an hour and 20 minutes on public comments and responses. With that, that brings us to our consent calendar, and I will move for the approval of the consent calendar, including items from the Library and Finance Committee that was held earlier this evening. Do we have a second? Thank you, Vice President Gavin. I should have asked, and I apologize for not doing so, was there anything that somebody wanted to remove from the consent calendar? All right, seeing that that has not occurred, and then the consent calendar as published has been moved and seconded, is there any discussion? I will then call the vote. All those in favor of the consent calendar, please raise your hand indicating your approval. Any objections? Seeing none, the consent calendar is approved unanimously. That then brings us to our next item, which is a Finance Committee item. For those who are following, page 28 of our agenda. And this is for approval of the amendment to the proposed 2022-2027 Capital Improvement Plan, the CIP, for Rolling Hill Park Master Plan Project, and to consider for approval amending the CIP Project 4502 Rolling Hill Master Planning Project to reallocate $55,000 from 2023 to 2022. I will so move it. Then thank you, Commissioner Gavin, for a second. Is there further discussion? Here's Gavin. Commissioner Grimes. Yeah. What can I tell you? It's the red jacket. Did you have a comment?
In the interest of time, I will just ask my colleagues to support this important amendment to help speed the improvements to Rolling Hill Park that are so sorely needed due to the pandemic and due to just general heavy use and enjoyment of the park by our residents. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Grimes. Anybody else with any other comments? Seeing none, then we can then call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand indicating your approval. Any who object, raise your hand. Seeing none, that also then carries unanimously. That brings us to our next item on page 29 of our agenda, which is approval for amendment to the, again, the CIP for Schauffele Green Project, to consider to amend the CIP project number 4072, Schauffele Green Project, to reallocate $120,000 for engineering and design from 2026 to 2023. I will so move it. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Commissioner Courtney. Any commissioner comment? Commissioner Courtney.
Thank you, President Burnham. I will not rehash my statements from a couple weeks ago, but I did want to follow up. I looked back at the CIPs that are available on our website. This is a project that was in our CIP in 2015, at least as far back, perhaps before, and it was planned for 2020. And it has shifted out to the furthest year possible in our CIP almost every year. And as I stated before, this is likely to be something the Ardmore Master Plan will recommend that we do. And so in the interest of using our CIP as a planning document that it is intended to be, I think it would make sense for us to plan to attack this in 2023. Okay.
Thank you very much. Vice President Gavin.
Thank you, President Bernheim. I also will not rehash the other side of the argument, which is, as Commissioner Courtney just said, while this is likely to be something that the Ardmore Master Plan will do, I think we should wait until the Ardmore Master Plan does it. And at that point, we will move it to wherever it needs to be done. I think this is a project that will be done and should be done, but to move it now while we're about to embark on a master plan seems silly to me.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, then we will then, call the vote. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand indicating aye. Those who oppose, that would be 3. 3, but it still does carry. That brings us to the next item, which is on page 30 of our agenda, and this is for approval to amend the proposed 2022 budget, tree canopy protection and planning, to consider amending the budget to add funds to the general fund operating budget for tree canopy protection and planning in the amount of $50,000. I will move it. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Courtney. Any comments? Yes, Commissioner Zoll.
President Bernheim, extremely briefly, which is my way, the Township of Lower Merion has an arborist, which is highly, highly unusual. I don't know if there's any other township that does. I think this falls into the arborist's responsibilities, and so I don't think we should be spending outside money to do something we can do inside.
And thank you, Commissioner Courtney.
Thank you, President Bernheim. I will try to be equally brief, Commissioner Zoll. This is a recommendation from both our Shade Tree Commission and our Environmental Advisory Committee. And it wasn't stated by the arborist, but certainly by our sustainability manager, that there is a significant amount of work with limited resources from our staff on top of their duties that they perform already to a high caliber. And for a small outlay, we will be able to make a plan that will protect our tree canopy for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else with any further comment? Seeing none, appreciate everybody's succinct way of capsulizing the discussions that we've had before, and we will call the vote. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand indicating your approval. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All those who oppose? 2. 12 to 2, it does pass. The next item we have is an amendment for the Philadelphia Capital Improvement for Sewer, and this is a motion to amend CIP Project 4708 for Philadelphia Capital Contribution to increase funding by $476,000 for a total of $976,000 in 2022 for upgrades to the Southwest Treatment Plant and related facilities that receive wastewater from Lower Merion and Narberth. You want to explain any of this? And I'm going to ask our township manager if he'd be so kind as to explain the reason why we're adding $476,000.
Sure. The township sends all of its sewage through a variety of points along City Avenue to the city of Philadelphia. And each year we budget a certain amount for our pro rata share of capital contributions that the city might be making to their infrastructure. The city just recently informed us that they have a current improvement project going at the Southwest Treatment Plant, and therefore our estimated capital contribution in 2022 will be $976,000. We had $500,000 already budgeted, but we're inserting this now to make sure our budget's a little more accurate for the CIP in 2022.
Thank you very much. So I have moved it, and we have a second on that. Thank you, Vice President Gavin. Any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Grimes.
I just have a question, and I understand the urgency of seeking approval for this tonight, but is there, and this is to our township manager, is there any oversight that we have into the amount the city requests or the reasonableness of, I understand the city, I'm sure, has public bidding procedures, but sort of the reasonableness of you know, their costs they're putting out, and particularly the township share?
We do. When the city bills us, they send us a complete package of invoices showing the costs were truly incurred.
Okay. Is this publicly bid by the city? Do you know?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I will call the vote on the motion to amend the CIP project 4708 as stated. All those in favor, please raise your hand indicating your approval. Any who object? Seeing none. And Vice President Gavin just called that a straight flush. So that then brings us to our next item, which is on page 31 of our agenda.
Could I have a point of information, because I think some people in the audience are confused. There was on page 29, no, not page 29, the CARES Act funding issue on page 31?
That's
what we're doing now?
Here we are.
Oh, okay. I thought, I
Okay.
couldn't tell if it was on consent or not on consent.
Yep, we are right there. Your timing is spot on. This is to consider for approval to allocate unawarded CARES Act funding from the Public Service Organization category in the amount of $18,134 to Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I will so move it. Is there a second? Well, Commissioner Durbin. And then is there any further discussion or comment? We've had a bit on Neighbors Helping Neighbors, but don't want to deprive anyone that opportunity. All right. Seeing none, I'll then call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand indicating your approval. Those who do not approve, that is 2. All right, it so passes. 3. Great. All right. That then brings us to an ordinance for adoption, which is located on page 32 of our agenda. And this is an ordinance to amend the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Articles 15, Schedule Section 145-118, Schedule 18, Parking Time Limited, by adding a 1 hour, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., except Saturday and Sunday, parking limitation on the north side of Union Avenue from Bala Ave to Hazel Lane, by rescinding the 2 hour, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., except Saturday and Sunday, parking limitation on both sides of Schiller Ave from Gordon Avenue West to and including the entire cul-de-sac, and by adding a no parking anytime regulation on Municipal Lot 20 to prohibit parking between signs on the south side adjacent to the retail parking garage entrance exit for a distance of 40 feet and on the north side for a distance of 20 feet on both sides of the retail parking garage entrance exit. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners on November 17 and duly advertised in December 5 edition of the Mainline Times. I will move for the adoption of ordinance 4231. I don't know if we have a second. Thank you, Commissioner McComb. Is there any discussion or questions that anybody has in connection with this? Seeing none, I believe we need a roll call vote.
Correct. For the adoption of ordinance 4231, Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Aye.
Ms. Durbin.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. Kramer. Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill. Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Zelob.
Aye.
Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you very much. That brings us to our next item, which would be found on page 35 of our agenda. Thank you. And that is for an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 78, Fire Prevention, by increasing the real property tax credit from 20% to up to 100% of the municipal tax liability on qualified real property for each active volunteer who has been certified under the Lower Merion Volunteer Service Credit Program. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held November 17, 2021, and duly advertised in the December 5, 2021 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. I will move for the adoption of Ordinance 4232. See if there's a second. Thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. Is there any discussion by anybody on the board? Yes, please, Commissioner McKeon.
Thank you. Very briefly, I think this is fantastic. You know, when you look at the budget, our entire fire budget for the township is less than $3.5 million. The police budget is over $28 million, and the library budget just for salaries is over $3.5 million. And I'm not saying the police or library budgets are bloated, but that just shows you how much we squeeze out of the fire budget. And we had to show you how dangerous it is, I mean, I don't need to remind everyone, we had 2 separate fatal incidents over the summer involving volunteers. So I think that this is, you know, the least that we can do, and I'm glad that this was added to the budget, and I hope everyone can support it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioner McKeon. Anybody else with any other comment in reference to this? Let me just add one, if I may. We have made the comment on a number of occasions and a number of items about this board being trendsetters. It's a shame that Mr. Driscoll left our meeting early because he could go back to the school board and tell them what we did in reference to this and coerce them to do the same. So with that, I will note that the motion's been made and seconded, and we will call the vote. And again, I believe we need a roll call, correct?
For the adoption of Ordinance 4232, Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Aye.
Ms. Durbin.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. Kramer.
Aye.
Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Zeloff.
Aye.
Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Very good. That then brings us to our next item, which is found on page 38 of our agenda, and that's an ordinance of the Township of Lower Merion to amend Ordinance 4207 adopted December 16, 2020, making a change in certain appropriations, some of which have proven to be larger than needed and some to be insufficient, and authorizing the proper township officers to make the required transfers from and to appropriations heretofore made of receipts not heretofore estimated, or from unappropriated fund balances. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on November 17 and duly advertised in the December 5 edition of the Mainline Times. I will move for the adoption of Ordinance 4233. Do we have a second on that? Thank you, Commissioner McComb. Do we have any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing none, we can then call the vote.
For the adoption of Ordinance 4233, Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Aye.
Ms. Durbin.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. Kramer. Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill. Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Zeloff.
Aye.
Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you very much. That then brings us to one more ordinance, and that's an ordinance of the Township of Lower Merion imposing a levy for general revenue purposes on all taxable real estate in the township in the amount of 4.19 mils on each $1 of assessed valuation, adopting an annual budget and appropriating specific sums estimated to be required for the purposes of the municipal government for the 2022 fiscal year, and approving the 2022 to 2027 capital improvement program. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on December 1 and duly advertised in the December 4 edition of the Times Herald. I will move for the adoption of Ordinance 4234. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Zeloff. Are there any questions, comments from members of the board? Yes,
I'll make
Commissioner
one
Durbin.
last comment.
Final one.
Yes, I won't be here to deal with how we're going to deal with our CIP and ARP things, but I'm assuming because we have a lot of money in our general fund that's extra, that we're going to take care of it this way. Otherwise, I think at some point the township should raise its taxes a moderate amount to cope with our structural deficit.
Any other questions or comments by members of the board? Seeing none, we then require a roll vote.
For the adoption of ordinance 4234, Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Aye.
Ms. Durbin.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Aye.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. Kramer.
Abstain.
Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen.
Aye.
Mr. Zeloff.
Aye.
Mr. Bernheim.
Aye.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you very much. That completes the listed business. Does anybody have any unfinished business? Yes, Commissioner Zoll.
President Bernheim, I think this falls into the category of unfinished business, but it will be finished tomorrow morning. And it directly relates to what we just did, which was approve the capital improvement plan. We are completing a project from many capital improvement plans, and that is the new Pennswood Road Bridge that's in Bryn Mawr, and it's shared in the wards of Commissioner Stevenson and I. That is a $7 million bridge. It is mostly paid for by PennDOT with a small contribution from the township. It's a beauty. We're cutting the ribbon at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I want to not only say to everybody that it will be open, but I want to thank our Public Works Director who is in the room with us tonight. It's a PennDOT project, but it's, as I've said many times, big projects, small projects, you don't just throw them to a contractor and hope that it's going to get done, because that's not how things work. And so, and it wasn't, the vast majority wasn't township taxpayer money, but there was a piece of township taxpayer money, but more importantly, it's a major bridge in the township. Our Public Works Director attended all the meetings, and there were many, with PennDOT, with the contractors, with the engineers, our engineer, Amtrak, who is challenging, SEPTA, who is very good to work with Harcum, with St. Luke, with Mother of Good Counsel, the private property on the corner, all the easements, the design issues, the utility companies, which can be challenging. And so all of that came together, and it took a long time, but our Public Works Director was there every step of the way. This bridge was scheduled to open in May, get this right, of 2022. It's opening 5 months early. So it can happen. Projects can get done early. Great credit goes to the contractor, Loftus Construction, who put a larger workforce on it. But all the people involved, including our Public Works Director, made that happen. And that bridge was open for pedestrian access throughout the construction project, because it was determined that there's a lot of pedestrians who use that bridge. There's sidewalks on both sides. It's real stone with masons. It's not fake stone. It is a beauty. You'll enjoy it when you go over it, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. President Bernheim, I usually make very brief remarks, but I got a little carried away with this one. Thank you for your indulgence.
Yeah, I can't wait till the Mill Creek Bridge opens up in your 20-minute speech.
I was trying to, not discuss that.
With that, is there anybody else who has anything else? Yes, Commissioner Stevens.
Mr. President, I would like to move that the speech that Mr. Zola just said be put in on the record, and he not be allowed to use it tomorrow.
Yeah, all those in favor? Yes, thank you. Anything else? So one other thing, so that is about to conclude, our business, for the calendar year. And quite a year it has been. It is not my intent to go through all that we have done, in order to deal with the pandemic. But I think I can say very safely that if you were to ask the residents of the township or the people that work here, it is as if we did not miss a beat. And that's really a tribute to the gentleman to my right, those who are the key members of his staff that are out here this evening. We've heard the compliments from about Public Works and all of the people there of what they have done.
and it certainly goes as we've done something this evening for the folks in our fire service, our police department, and all of our staff. We had a series of applause for one of our own, Commissioner Durbin, and I'm just going to ask as we wrap up here this evening that we do a round of applause for all of those that work for the township and that really make this such an absolutely wonderful place to live. I will say is we wish everybody happy holidays, a healthy new year, and without having taken a poll of my colleagues, I know that they would agree, it is a privilege, an absolute privilege, to be able to serve as a commissioner of Lower Merion. We thank you all for your hard work this evening and wish you all a good night. We are hereby adjourned.